There is one question that I do want to ask is that in order for me to publish all the videos, I need to push them onto YouTube, and sometimes I send them out as public links, but that means that they're all public and they're all open for viewing for everybody in the world. Do we want them to be restricted to just the link itself?
We have in the past for security. So are you saying that the reason I've been having problems seeing the video is because they've been set private, and that's the reason not showing up in the channel?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
All right. Okay, well, why don't we talk about this afterwards? And
okay.
Meanwhile, I believe that I'm speaking, but I think I'm currently signed up also to be an evaluator for Jose.
Okay. So I can be...
Yeah, I was wondering if someone else could do that since I was doing the other two things, or whatever.
I can be evaluator for Jose.
Cool.
Do we have a general evaluator? I'm a table topics master.
I can be general evaluator too. Okay, so I am going to be general evaluator and the video master. Okay.
Am I first speaker?
Yes, you are first speaker.
Let me get set up while you're doing stuff. Are we all ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. We are going to continue talking about finances, specifically focusing on family wealth. But also today we're going to talk about the strategies you can use with respect to working with your families and their family wealth. To remind everyone why we're focusing on this, we are going to be seeing the largest wealth transfer from generation to generation happening in the next few years as the boomers retire. And as we've seen over and over again, regardless of where you live in the world, about 90% of these families will end up losing most of their money by the third generation. And the reason this happens is not due to, as you might expect, like taxes or bad investments. In general, what's happening is that there's a breakdown in family communication and trust. The heirs are not properly prepared, and the family isn't linked together with any sort of a family mission. I'm getting a lot of this information from this book, which is Family Wealth by Hughes. He is a lawyer who works on the area of family wealth to help families perpetuate the structures they need in order to pass things on. He says that a few of the things you need to do when you start putting your wealth together is you need to have a few things defined. One is family, another is a shared purpose among the family members, and also a family mission, which we will talk about in each of these things. You might think that something like defining family would be relatively straightforward, but it's always been actually something incredibly complicated. And it's only become even more complicated as things have changed in the modern day. Who exactly we define as family and how long that link continues. We have a variety of mixed families. We have a variety of all sorts of types of interactions and relationships between people, from something as formal as marriage, divorce, or annulment to something as informal as a one-night stand or even something between. So once you've figured out who is family, how you join the family, and how you leave the family, it's then important to figure out what do these people share besides these sometimes nebulous connections. It's always good to have a goal for everyone to focus on. You don't want this goal to be something that's rigid over time. You want something that can be incredibly flexible and something that everyone understands will change if needed. For example, a really good goal might be that everyone in the family might focus on helping people get their educations, whatever that person might think of for their education. And that person can then, every individual can then pursue their own source of happiness, whatever that happiness might be as they define it. The next thing for people to consider is that families should have some sort of mission, something they're working towards, something beyond just the acquisition of assets. For some people, this might involve charity. It might involve focusing on trying to improve things within the family itself, whatever it might be. Now, another thing that's important for defining the family and giving you a sense of community among these people is a family story. Back in the old country, wherever your families might have come from, there may have been a cemetery that your relatives could point to and say, my great great grandfather is buried in that cemetery, and we have been here for hundreds or thousands of years. That's really wonderful if you have that. But a lot of people really don't have that. Some people, it's amazing in the United States, especially. There's so much fluidity with the way people live their lives that people often think that their relatives, their ancestors came from a certain part of the world. Then they do a DNA test and they find out they have actually no connection whatsoever to that particular part of the world. In other words, it's not as important that the family's history, the family's story, what makes this family unique from all the other millions of families on the planet. It doesn't actually have to be true. It just has to be something that everyone can kind of agree upon and get behind. For example, maybe you think of your family as being very focused on community-oriented things. You are associating yourself with the town that you live in, the state that you live in, whatever it is that's very important to your family. That's what makes your family unique. But as you do this, you want to make certain that your family mission doesn't end up overshadowing the individuals. It's more important that while the family is an important structure, you shouldn't lose sight of the fact that it is the individuals that make up the family. And if anyone feels like the family is overburdening an individual person, they probably need to rethink what they think of as the family mission and its story. Now, as we go forward in this, we're going to talk even more about other things we can do to build family wealth. The idea is that family should be thought of not just a collection of people, but as Alex Haley has pointed out, it's a link to your past and to the future. And as Abigail Van Buren has pointed out, the important thing with, for example, family and the connections that children experience is that it's important to spend twice as much time with them and half as much money. So when you're working on this family wealth concept, remember, it isn't all about money. In fact, money is actually the unimportant part of this. And with that, I will leave us there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Could you please take a minute to give us your thoughts and some feedback for Georgie? Our next speaker is Jose. Jose is a long-term speaker, a longtime member of our club. He has been speaking on a lot of different topics that are relevant to for selling and marketing and project management. It's always interesting to listen to his ideas and to his research on different topics. Today, he's going to be presenting on creative marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jose.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, everyone. Today, I will be doing my continuing series on sales and marketing before I cover strategic selling, buyer influences, the sales process, the organizational structure of your customers. Today, I'm going to shift into marketing. In this case, it will be creative marketing. And the idea behind all these speeches is to give you a few points. You are sometimes put into a selling situation and you sell yourself when you look for a job, or you may even do something simple like sell something on eBay. And you may want to consider your marketing strategy. My reference for this presentation is the book called Guerrilla Marketing by J. Conrad Levinson. It's a very, very popular book. I would consider it mandatory reading if you want to get into marketing. His focus is on small businesses, how they can market without spending too much in a very competitive environment. For example, a mom and pop store trying to compete against a Walmart next to it. And how do you do that? By being creative. And to be creative, the author identified three key elements. Basically, you have to know your product and how it applies into the market. The second is you have to, from this knowledge, you have to recombine certain elements and come up with something innovative. And the third element is to know your customers thinking backwards and thinking forwards in how your product is applied. So let's start with knowledge. It seems very obvious that we all know the fields that we're in. You had your education, you had your on-the-job training, you're working it already, so why do I need more? Well, the problem with that is you have to expand your horizons. You cannot just stay within your cubicle. You have to travel. And that's my personal experience. You do have to travel, and you'll have specific nuggets of information that you really do need to really expand to other markets because there are new trends. And how do you do that? You work with your customers, you work with their problems, you ask about competitors, and that helps a lot. Just being with the customer already tells you a lot about your competitors. You ask experts, and from there, person to person knowledge, you expand. You expand to literal knowledge. You go to trade shows, you read white papers, you read reports. It's good to actually read even general news as it relates to you. For example, when 5G was going on, I actually did an online seminar to learn about this 5G and how it applies to our situation when the company I'm working with, and because we do switches and I had to understand RF frequency effects with this 5G technology. So based on this extensive knowledge, you can work on it. And how do you work on it? By recombining elements of information that you've just obtained. And that's the second part. How do you do this? By understanding your message. the key here is marketing. So I could give you good examples. For example, 7 Up, when they were like competing against Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, they called the product Uncola, right? They use the word un and then cola and use that against your competitor. For example, even being behind in the market helps you. For example, Avis, they're behind Hertz in sales, but they use that against Hertz by saying that we work harder. The implication is they don't, right? The competitor is not working harder. We're working harder for you, even though we're number 2. So that's the idea, right? You strategically position yourself so you're competing mentally, right? So that's how you do it. And then after that, after you've done your message, this is what your message, you have to test it. And that's a third element. A third element in being creative is you have to live your message. You have to think backwards. Well, what was the customer experience before I made this message? Before I made this innovation, what was going on? Did I really improve the perception of my company? Did I really improve the life of my customer? And if the answer is yes, then the message is correct. Then how would you know? By inference, by again visiting the customer and knowing by direct questioning, do you like the product? Or indirect questioning, how do you spend your day? Based on what goes on beyond between the lines, you'll figure out if your message, your marketing is very effective. And that's how I conduct whenever I do customer visits. There is a message between the lines, and you have to observe, and you'll find out if your message is very effective or less effective. And also, if it's very good if you hear some side comments whenever you do your visits. So, in summary, what the course is trying to say is you have to live, you have to breathe, you have to work your product. You have to know what it's all about. Be innovative, move information around, and there's something there that you can use. Live the customer's shoes, walk in the customer's experience, and you'll understand. You'll come up with a very good marketing strategy. In other words, come up with something new and impress them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. Let's take a minute to give some feedback to Jose. Okay. At this time, I'd like to introduce our general evaluator, myself. I will be doing the general evaluation for this meeting. And our first evaluator today is Gautam. Gautam has been an integral part of our club now. He has contributed many speeches, inspired us to take action, inspired us to think bigger, to work on ourselves. And he's got some very insightful evaluations. I've seen some very insightful observations that normally I would have missed. Ladies and gentlemen, Toastmasters, please welcome our first evaluator, Gautam, who's going to be evaluating Georgie.
Thank you, Harun, and thank you, fellow Toastmasters. So, Georgie, the speech, I have always get additional information when I hear your speech, get some different ideas on the wealth of how it's applied or how it can materialized. So I started looking into that book. I added in my bucket list. As always, I counted very few R's, and you started with the started with the introduction of the previous, or like some gist of the topic, and you added very few points in the slides, so that's very appealing. And the purpose of the speech was clearly explained. It was really very good. That was able to capture what audience should hear from your speech. That was very well placed. And I also, it would be great if we could have some personal stories like that inspired or that happened in real life. So like there are some information, yeah, we have to follow this method, or this method would work. And I know you mentioned a couple of stories in the past, so I would like to keep on continue that, so we can able to track, we can relate the stories, like when audience or myself personally, when I hear about stories, so that will totally stick to my mind along with the concept. uh, and I have a few few challenges for you. Like, can we make it more in terms of picture, like visual cues, rather than having a plain slides? Like I have always envisioned myself like, can we make it? Can we give a talk with the slides with a few pictures, a few words? That always motivate me. Like, I focus on the speech or talk rather than looking at the slides. So I like to challenge you that and see how you can come up with the different creative ideas. Um, so other than that, the overall speech was very good. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to our next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. Our next evaluator is me. I'll be evaluating Jose. So the first impression that I got from Jose's meeting, for Jose's speech, was his mastery of the topic. I thought that came out really well, because even though Jose started off his speech about what his topic is going to be, what his source material was, looking at his face and his the way that he was presenting his material through the course of the speech, I realized that not only has Jose actually mastered the theory or the stories or the ideas behind the material that he was presenting, but he has also practiced it, lived it, and breathed it. And essentially, he is effectively marketing the ideas behind effective marketing. So that was something that I got right away through the speech, and it reflected the way he was actually speaking to it. If you listen through his speech, I didn't detect any ahs. I didn't detect any moments of thinking of what I need to say. His stories, his command of his examples and stories was delivered in a very effective manner. Now, I don't know if he was reading from any notes that he had made, but it actually implied that he's got this material down pat. He knows how to convince his audience about the need on how to effectively market your your product or your business. What I especially like in terms of structure, I really like the fact that he cited his source material, and I'm sure that must be just one of the source materials that he used. That was very well done. He cited all the 3 points that he wanted to get to, and then gave a lot of structured examples on how to, for each point that he was going to make. And then at the end, from summary point of view, he actually wrapped it up in a way so that we could actually draw some conclusions. In terms of structure, I couldn't find any kind of flaw in that. As I said earlier, his presentation was very well done. There weren't any odds or breaks into it where he was pausing to think. suggested that he had mastery over this over the topic. The one thing that I felt was missing was that I noticed that on the screen that there was some kind of hand gestures where he was trying to sort of emphasize using his hands to emphasize what is the point that he wants to make. So a couple suggestions there. Move back from the screen to sort of that brings that up, because the only reference that I had was your face. And sometimes when you have mastery over the topic, you tend to go a little emotionless about it. And even though I know that you might know what the topic is, so you might want to stand back so that we can pick up what's important and what's not. That's the only feedback, negative feedback that I have. But otherwise, thank you very much for taking this topic and taking the time to present to us. Mr. General Evaluator. At this time, I'm going to return control to our Toastmaster, myself, and introduce our table topics master, Wai Ming.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. So today we have a very interesting topic, obstacles to opportunities. Obstacles and opportunity depends on how you look at it. So when I look at this situation is, and I'm not being feckless about this, is there's obstacles presented by your environment, could be your history, could be what's currently happening, but most of the obstacle in my mind are actually in your mind. It's not the environment that's stopping you. I've seen many examples of successful people who overcome whatever they have, independent of whatever the history and so on. And in fact, one of the very interesting example is not a positive example, but a very good example, though, in my mind, of someone who deals with obstacle and who just doesn't care about obstacle is our current president, Mr. Trump. It really doesn't matter whether there's democracy or not. He'll just find ways to get around those obstacles. So I want to ask one of you, what do you think of that idea? Who would like to talk about that? If not, I'm going to pick Jose. I think he raised his hand.
Well, thank you, Wai Ming. Obstacle. Well, when you said obstacle, and this is the way whenever somebody asks me a question, there's always a singular topic that comes to mind when you ask that question. Well, what are your obstacles in your life and your experience? And to me, my obstacle is a state of mind. I always had this impression wherever I am that I'm missing something, and it boils down to that. I'm missing something, and I don't want to be fleckless about it. So I may have overdone it, right? Sometimes I do more than what is expected as far as gathering information and trying and trying and trying. So that I have to meter down, and sometimes you miss, right? You miss the moment, right? You're analyzing things too much, right? And even on vacations, I have that. I'm missing something. I'm not smelling the flowers, right? The inconsequential details. And so sometimes we have to balance our lives. And I'm getting better and better with that. And so that's my first thoughts when you ask that question. Obstacles. It's a state of mind. Thank you.
Wai Ming, you are in mute.
Thank you. So thank you, Jose. So I still want to deal with this question of how Mr. Trump is dealing with his obstacles. Would any one of you remaining like to talk about that?
I can jump in.
Thank you, Gautam.
So I thank you, fellow table topics masters and Toastmasters. So when I hear that question, I see Mr. Trump is converting all the obstacles into an opportunities. That's a perspective of a business person. No matter what, keep moving forward. He has been doing it. He had been doing it. It was very good for the nation. I don't know. Very good for the people. I don't know. But it's very good for him. He is doing it because the state of mind that he has, it's really important. Whether you are a president, whether you are a good family member, whether you are a business person or you are running a small shop. Obstacles are unexpected one. Do we need to be prepared always to face those obstacles? Certainly not. I try to relate the story of obstacles, relate that with another movie called Catch Me If You Can. I hear the speech of that actual real world person. He had in his move, he moved away from one part of the world to other part of the world without paying anything. He turned all the obstacles into opportunities with sometimes prepared thought of mind and with a reckless effort, he made it into what he want. So that story inspired me that yes, we cannot always be prepared, but we should be ready to face the obstacles and look for evidences to change that into opportunities. And Mr. Donald Trump did the same, converting all the obstacles into opportunities, and he keep moving forward, whether he's going to succeed or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. So to continue on that theme of dealing with obstacles and turning out the opportunities of the remaining two persons, Haroon and Georgie, I'd like to challenge you to say, what else he's not doing that he could have achieved his goal? Georgie, you're on mute.
Yes, I am. All right. I have to admit, I have been a little busy and have not really kept up on the latest of what's been going on about what's going to be happening on January 20th. In fact, I thought this was kind of settled, but I guess I've been a bit feckless with my news watching, so I haven't really realized that there's still a lot of things that are contested with respect to the presidential elections. I do know that the Georgia elections were just completed, and I don't know if they've figured out who won that one yet. I think that it's certainly been interesting with President Trump, and I have to admit that he did more than I would have expected, to be honest, given his lack of background in this area in politics. I have to admit, I wish he had done a teeny bit more, because one of the first bills that he worked on was the immigration bill. And certainly living in Silicon Valley, certainly going to school with many people from other countries, I have always regretted that we don't have even more visas available for people who are wanting to come live here and who would be great additions to the American citizenry. Sadly, that didn't quite work out, and he really, I have to admit, I thought he did quite a bit to try to motivate Congress into getting that bill passed, including taking away the DACA provisions so that it looked like the young people might not be able to stay in the United States. That obviously was changed so that they still had their 2-year Band-Aid, unfortunately, so they don't quite know what's going to happen with their lives. And I just regret, like I said, that more did not get done in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgie. So I'm going to challenge Haroon, you can turn off the camera. Think out of the box. What else could he have done to remain president?
What else could he have done to remain president? Well, thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. It is this is a challenging question, and I think the okay, sorry. This is a challenging question. Obstacles to opportunities are really about another topic. Obstacles are not about challenges to take on. It is about negative adversity, adversarial conditions, and then overcoming them. In the words of another president that I personally happen to like very much, President Clinton, he said in a speech once that adversity is not the enemy. Adversity is your friend. It is complacency that is the real challenge, the real enemy. For Donald Trump to say that the obstacles to his remaining president is not an obstacle, it is the natural evolution of the country. And that was the thing that he did not understand. The problem isn't that what he could do to remain president. His challenge was to overcome his own obstacle, his own mental state about accepting his loss. Nobody will ever take away the fact that he got one of the largest vote totals in 100 years. That is an accomplishment in itself, and he should be proud of that. But he could not think above himself. The fact was that he wanted to remain president is not the challenge that he had to face. It was the challenge, that internal challenge of what he could do to remain in power. He had an opportunity to become another president in 4 years, but he, in fact, frankly, I think he's kind of blown that opportunity as well. So to wrap things up, that's not the obstacle that he had. His obstacle was that how he could remain relevant. And I think he has actually managed to do that, make himself irrelevant. That's what I would say was his greatest challenge, and he has kind of not risen to it. Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master.
Thank you, Haroon. So you can change your obstacle into some other obstacle. That's good. In any case, that's the end of table topics, and we'll return control back to Toastmaster.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tabletop Master. I'm going to return control to our general evaluator, which is myself, and call upon our duty masters. In the meantime, our first duty master is our timer, Wai Ming.
Yes.
Right? Please tell us how we do it in time.
Yes, Mr. Toastmasters, I'm a report on the time. Georgie spoke for 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Jose, 7:13. In the evaluation, Gautam around 2:42, Haroon 3:23. And then in the table topics, Jose 1:22, Gautam 2:30, Georgie 2:15, and then Haroon 2:25. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Georgie, would you tell us how we did on grammar?
Thank you very much. We did quite well on grammar. Starting with Jose, I thought you did a really good job with your descriptive language, such as know your customers thinking backwards and forwards, expand your horizon, nuggets of information, literal knowledge. One area that I would suggest you might want to look into, you said when 5G was going on in the past tense. I think it's still going on, so I'm not sure what you mean by was going on. Maybe that's something personal to you, but I believe that we're still rolling out 5G in a lot of places. Live your customer's shoes. I think you meant it. You may have said it, but I didn't hear it. But it's sort of, I think, included in, like live in your customer's shoes so you can better get to know them. I like the way you said singular topic and meter down. Once again, very descriptive. Let's see, Gautam, when you were talking about the movie Catch Me If You Can, you meant to say something along the lines of it's based on a real world person whose name I guess you kind of forgot. And you said actual real world person. You could have said something like it was based on the true crime story of a con man or something like that. Maybe a bit more descriptive. Let's see. Haroon, mastery of this topic, lived it and breathed it. I like the way you were using that because it echoed what Jose said in his speech. So it was nice carryover for that. You also said something, I'm not totally certain if it's incorrect or not. I'm just not sure about it. You mentioned that Jose cited sources for his materials that he talked about, the book. And he also said that he cited 3 points. I tend to think of citing as like a citation or like a reference. So what he didn't, I'm not sure if he cited 3 points or if he listed 3 points, but that's neither here nor there. Waming, you said, let's see, overcome whatever they can. And I think you meant overcome overcome disadvantage, whatever they are. So any other than that, I thought things went really well today. So all done.
Okay. Our next duty master is our word master. I know I was pretty feckless in using the word of the day, but Georgie can give us a.
Yes. Okay, I may give you that one just because you did manage to get it in under the bell. So that would mean that everybody used the word of the day, and it was kind of a hard one to use. So really good job, guys. Everyone used it today.
Thank you, Georgie. Our next role is the counter. Jose, would you like to tell us how we did in ahs and ums?
Yes, for the counter report, I didn't detect a lot of ahs. I didn't think there's about, I would say 3 to 4 for Golden. I think I said 1, and then the rest I didn't hear any. So that's it. That's the counter report.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to send the link for the votes. Please vote for your best speaker. And I will give you the best speaker, evaluator, and table topics master. And I will give the report, the final winners in a few seconds, as soon as we have some majority.
Okay. Have you sent the link?
Yes, I did. It's on chat. Oh, I'm sorry. I only sent it to one person. Let me do that again. In the meantime, does anyone have a joke?
I can read a joke.
Please go ahead.
Okay, give me a second. Let me bring back Zoom. Okay, so this is a crime scene. It's a brutal crime scene, and the local policemen were stumped. They call in the brilliant detective Sherlock. Arriving on the scene, Sherlock noticed the carpet askew, the victim on the ground, a terrible wound on his head. Next to him lay a large picture. He also saw a bowl of almonds, a broken window, and a tube of glue, all three hysterical. All three of those, the almond, the windows, and the glue. The carpet says the picture is the one who did the crime. The picture say he didn't do it, but we know he's the culprit. The victim's fingerprints all over the carpet, said the policeman. Even so, the almonds, the windows, and the glue insist they did it. It's elementary, answer Sherlock. The rug did it. The picture needed to be straightened, and the victim adjusted it. The carpet, in a fit of jealously tripped him, caused the carpet jealously tripped the victim, causing the heavy picture to hit him on the head, killing him. What about the others? The policeman asked. Sherlock continues, the almonds are nuts. The windows is cracked and the glue is crazy. The rug, sir, is lying. And the picture was framed. So that's the joke. You had to catch every single word.
Okay, Georgie, I'm trying to look for the report, and it seems to that it's kind of accumulated all the historical votes. For some reason, I don't understand why I'm not getting for the individual responses for today's meeting. Oh. Can you take a look? Yes.
You're mute, Georgie.
Georgie?
Georgie, you're mute.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I'm checking out the link, and I guess maybe we need to delete the responses and then have people send it in again, unless there's some way we can do it. Because it's coming in, I guess, from that date, 9/9/2020.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
Delete all responses? Can I just delete them and then you can give them again?
Sure. If everyone, yeah, we'll just go ahead and we'll delete them, and then everyone, if you can just click on that link again, and we'll give it another shot. Sorry about that. This is what happens when we don't have an expert like Hannah around to set up all this stuff. So. Okay. Yeah, it looks like what I got from Hannah was an old link, obviously, and she set all this up. So I don't know precisely how she did all of it.
Go ahead, everybody. I think.
Need one more?
We need one more.
No, we got them. They're all there. Yay.
Yep. Okay, so our first table topics is, our winner is, drum roll please, Haroon, myself. Our best evaluator is Gautam. And our best speaker is Jose. Thank you, everybody. I think, and at this point, I'd like to fill up any roles for next week. I can volunteer to be a speaker or an evaluator.
Speaker.
Sorry?
I can be one of the speaker.
Okay, so Gautam, you can be a speaker. Do we have a, I don't have a topic yet. And given my chronic procrastination, I would be, can we have a backup speaker as well?
I can be a backup speaker.
Okay. Do we also need a Toastmaster?
I'll be Toastmaster.
Okay,
thank
Jose.
you, Jose. And a Table Topics Master?
I can be that.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
everybody. So we've got major roles all filled up. We will need evaluators. also. So we can decide that at a later time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've got all the major roles. Thank you, everybody. I'll fill in these roles for next week. That at this point, I'd like to return control to our president. Well, I am the president. At this point, I'd like to close our meeting and thank you, everybody, again.
Do you want to
And,
take a photo?
yeah, I do want to take the photo. So let me just change our view. Thank you, everybody. And I will send this photo right away. At this point, I'd like to close the meeting. And thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, guys.
Do you want to talk about
Happy
the
New
video
Year.
thing before we leave?